everyone. I see many people filing in. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in a minute or two here as folks sort of filter in from the waiting room. So hi, everyone. My name's Alex Barlow. I'm the Vice President Programs with the Canadian Food Innovation Network. And today our presentation focuses on our Innovation Booster Program for the 25-26 fiscal year. And si vous êtes ici, puis tu nous joins du Québec ou d'une région francophone, puis tu veux entendre ou suivre la présentation en français, nous avons notre service Worldly que tu peux sélectionner au top de l'écran, Custom Live Streaming Service. Puis tu peux changer la langue en français pour avoir des captions en français pour la présentation. Aussi, dans le chat, on va mettre un lien aux présentations en français. Tous nos documents puis nos formulaires sont accessibles en français. Tu peux soumettre votre demande en français. Ça va être la même procédure pour l'examen, va être suivie. Et donc, je vais faire un switch back to English. But as I said, I invite you to join this session through Wordly to listen to it in French or to follow along in French, and our French presentation is available. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and again say welcome. If you are, as I mentioned, wanting to access the session in French, we do have a custom live streaming service. If you just want to see the captions from this session, you're also welcome to use that in English. And you can see here a little bit more on how to use the Wordly service. So if you're new to CFIN, welcome, and we encourage you to join as a member. A few things you should know about us. We were established in 2021. Since then, we've built the fastest growing and most engaged food community in the country. We have, I believe now, cracked well into 6,000 members across Canada. And we offer a variety of tools and services to the food sector. But of course, we're all here today to talk about funding, our funding programs, and our funding's focused at transformative food projects. We want collaborative projects where we're supporting technology that can impact CFIN's members who are in food manufacturing, food service, so restaurants, things like that, and food retail. And we're here not only to fund projects, but also connect you to new ideas, service providers, communities. Our online platform, Yodel, exists to help you do that 24/7. And we're a fully remote organization. I'm coming to you from Guelph, Ontario, but we have members across Canada. We have staff across Canada. And in each of your regions, we have a member-facing staff person called a Regional Innovation Director, and a few of them may be on the call and introducing themselves in the chat. I do see the chat popping up. I do want to encourage you as we go through this presentation, if you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A box. You can post them in the chat. They just get lost. They're very hard for me to address. So post them in the chat or in the Q&A box, and I will answer them at the end of the session. We've left lots of time for questions. So don't worry if there's something that you're missing, feel free to ask it. There's probably someone else wondering it as well. So some of our members, as I mentioned, we're located across Canada. We're meant to bring the food ecosystem together. That includes, private companies like many of you, academia and research centers, incubators and accelerators, government and investors. And so if you're looking for better connections within the food sector, we're a great place to start. And I highly recommend that you try and leverage our network to build your community within the sector. We're a very big sector. Our members span 1.6 million employees in Canada. And, I think over 100 million in GDP. So we're a big sector, and we span a lot of different parts of the value chain, but also commodities. So really, we exist to try and break down some of those silos. As I mentioned, some fundamental differences in our services. Yes, we offer funding. Money is often a critical thing to grow your food tech or your food business. We also have boots on the ground staff, our regional innovation directors, who are situated across the country and who are there to help members address some of those barriers to their growth. And then Yodel, because, one person in a region, say, of Ontario, serving 2,500 plus members, can't be answering every need you have. Yodel is a great space for you to go and self-solve problems. If you're looking for what the best nutritional labeling software is, if you're looking to understand where people are getting spray drying support, if you're trying to figure out who can help you source a non-US gluten-free, I don't know, tapioca, Yodel's a great place to go and use and self-serve some solutions there. We offer, or have offered to date, almost 5 program calls now across Canada. Innovation Booster is certainly one of our most popular and one of our largest, and it's returning for the 25-26 fiscal year, which for us starts April 1st. And I'm sure you're all excited about that. It's really meant to be a flexible, rapid support program. It's meant to help SMEs address technical hurdles in their business. So it's not for sales projects. It's not for marketing. It's funding for research, development, or demonstration of a novel piece of technology, whether that's an ingredient, whether that is an actual software, could be hardware, could be a piece of equipment you have, could be a piece of automation. And it's here to help the development and commercialization of that. We are focused, and this is true for all of our programs, we are focused on the post-farm gate supply chain. So we're looking for the primary benefactors of your project to be food and beverage manufacturers, distributors of food products, restaurants, food service players, grocery retail, or even consumers. If you are coming to me and describing an application where the primary benefactor is a farmer or someone who grows crops or raises livestock, it is not eligible for our funding. And we see it every intake, so please consider seriously whether or not your project is a fit in our programs. And if it's not, we're happy to direct you to an organization like CAIN, which is a little bit of a cousin organization of ours. But we are looking for projects that impact our members. Could be that you have a solution that takes data from the farm and carries it through the supply chain and has really valuable impacts to CFIN members. You got to make sure you're articulating that in your application. We will deem projects that are not an R&D project or not targeting our members as ineligible, and it won't proceed to reviews. So we have some priorities within the food sector that we're looking to target. And we do ask you in your application to select one of these and speak to how you're addressing these priorities. We're obviously looking to support the development of really great smart processes that impact productivity, that drive competitiveness. We're also looking at smart products, the next evolution of ingredients that can improve in consumer health, address manufacturing costs, and even things like the application of biotechnology within the food sector. Sustainability, food ecosystem sustainability. Obviously, there's a lot of really great innovations coming out related to reducing food waste or valorizing waste streams of food around circularity and upcycling. We also look at green and smart packaging solutions for food. So if you are working in the packaging space and you're looking at our programs, please note that if the packaging you're creating is not going to be targeted at food, it's a tough go for us. We want solutions that impact our members. And of course, things that make us more efficient with water, energy, fuel, etc. And lastly, agile and safe supply chains. Especially during COVID, we saw that our supply chains are not as resilient as we'd like them to be. So what are ways we can apply technology and innovation to logistics? What tools can we give to customers and consumers to give them better insights and data on the food they're eating? How can we address food safety through new technology? How can we address food security through technology? How can we apply things like IoT and supply chain? When we talk about innovation, just be aware, we're looking for some novel element, for an element of intellectual property to be created. If you are creating a new food product, let's say you've got a novel dairy-free ice cream or a protein bar or a new tofu product. Unfortunately, those types of projects are generally not eligible for our funding. We want to see novel ingredients or novel technology behind your project. So if it's just a formulation, a new formulation, or a healthier option, generally those types of applications don't fare well, and we're happy to chat about those through the question process if you have them, or if you want to see if you've got a fit. So how much funding do we have available? We fund projects up to 50% as a grant contribution. We give up to a maximum of $100,000 for an innovation booster project. That is for up to a year's project. So a project longer than a year does not fit into our booster program. So your total eligible project costs within our program should be somewhere between $20,000 and $200,000. The funding is provided on a reimbursement basis. We always get lots of questions. How do can I get an advance? Do I need to have the rest of my money proven right away? This is a very competitive program. You do want to ensure that you can demonstrate to us that you have your half of the money, and you do have to be able to bridge project costs while we review and approve your claim. If you're successful in securing funding with us, we do require a non-refundable project management fee of 5% of the total project cost. So for most of our boosters, it's a fee if you're getting the full amount of about $10,000, which covers our costs to administer the program, process your claims, etc. And we fund about 10 to 12 boosters annually in this program. Sometimes more if people don't ask for the total amount of funding, but it's not 100 of them. So again, can be quite competitive. So first, to be eligible is you've got to be a CFIN member. If you are not yet a CFIN member, go to our website and join. It's very simple. You get access to a number of our services beyond our funding programs. And then it takes us about 24 hours to activate you on our application portal so that then you can go and begin your application. So not a good process to start on March 24th when the application is due midnight on the 25th. You will stress yourself out a little bit. So recommend, if you've got another tab on your window right now, you can listen to me chat while you go ahead and become a member. What is going to make an eligible project? It's got to be an R&D project with a clear technical hurdle and a methodology for how you're going to go about figuring out what the solution is. You've got to have what is the goal and outcome and what is its commercial application. So what's the market opportunity and how have you validated that this is responding to a market need of CFIN's members? Like I said, it's got to conduct R&D. It's got to be in what we call technology readiness levels between 1 to 7. TRL 8 and 9 are often about very late stage commercialization, and I am going to cover them a little further into the presentation, but That TRL level is something we're going to ask you to define and talk about in your submission. And as I mentioned, your project's got to be completed within 12 months. And this applies for those of you who might be applying to other cycles later this year. The end date for our programs is 31st of December 2026, so we won't be funding any activities beyond that date. So, reiterate it again, we fund research, development, and demonstration projects. So the launch of your mobile application website or the travel to trade shows, those sorts of things are not fundable. Apologies, my screen is just jumping ahead here. So we're looking very specifically at research, development, and demonstration or pilot projects of an ingredient or technology. And TRL levels, if you don't know what these are, we do go over them in our program guide that's available on the website. We tend to fund really actively between 3 to 7, where you've figured out the basics of your solution. Now you need to get it into a demonstrated state. So 3 to 7 is generally our sweet spot. We don't tend to do a lot of work at TRL 0 or 1, where you've got the very basic concept. We want you a little further along. But 3 to 7 is really our sweet spot. And ideally, we're trying to get as many people as close to commercialization as possible, because as I'm sure we all know, working in the food sector, we've got an audience here in Canada that is really starved for great solutions and innovations to drive competitiveness and productivity. So, what kind of things will we pay for? This is addressed at length in the program guide, and I definitely recommend that you read it. But the kind of things you can put in your budget for an application to CFIN are direct labor. We will cover wages of T4 staff that you have on payroll. If they're not on payroll, they're considered a subcontractor, so you want to put them in that section. But if they're on payroll, we will cover their gross wages or salaries if they are direct technical labor. So your engineer, your software developer, your food scientist. Those are great eligible job descriptions for our projects. We will not fund wages paid to your majority shareholders. So your CTO who owns half the company, unfortunately, we will not pay for their costs. And we do want any labor being covered in our programs to be supported by a timesheet that outlines what activities that person was working for, as well as their pay stubs. Then, of course, subcontractors and consultants. So this is someone carrying out technical work on the project. Sometimes it might be a third-party testing partner like Bureau Veritas or SGS. It could be a university or a college completing a scope of work for you. You've got to provide us, this amount in the budget. So you got to say, hey, I'm going to work with the University of Guelph. They say it's going to be $30,000 worth of work. And when we get the invoice, we want to see what that scope of work is that they were completing for you before we would pay it out if it was an approved project. It could be a consultant who's working more like a contracted engineering partner. We're pretty open to, again, technical contributors to your project as subcontractors or consultants. You'll just have to outline what that is in your budget and provide it to us from the beginning. And then materials, again, we're looking here for, items that we can identify as clearly being associated with the project. We don't do high volume, low cost items that we can't really tell if you used it on our project or just generally. Things like hairnets, rubber gloves, 3D filament for 3D printers, nuts and bolts, hand tools like drills, etc. We don't pay for that directly. What we will pay, for example, is components you need to build a robotic arm. You need to purchase certain gripper materials. Maybe you need some genetic assay tests if you're doing more of a biotech project. Those sorts of things we'll consider. But rubber gloves and things that you might be using just in the regular course of your business, we have an indirect cost policy, which I'll explain further, which covers that sort of overheady, hard to account for directly to the project. We have coverage for that within our program. Equipment. Yes, we will cover equipment. If you need, let's say, a certain microscope or a piece of testing equipment, or perhaps, to make this special ingredient, you need to purchase a mill of a certain type or an X-ray machine. As long as you can directly show that it's for project activities and that the purchase is not to scale or increase your production, it's for R&D first and foremost, and the project cannot be completed without it, we will consider your equipment. We'll also consider the rental of equipment. And then other direct costs, sort of a big bucket, but that's where you can put things like shipping expenses, software that's directly required for the project. So again, ongoing licenses to HubSpot or a CRM or to Microsoft Office. That's a business expense that we won't pay for. And we will consider some travel expenses. Again, ends up being subject to a fairly restrictive travel policy. Obviously, no first class flights being paid for with government support. And we're also looking for the activity to be directly related to the project. So for example, if you are installing a piece of equipment in a pilot partner's facility and you need to travel there to prove that, and watch the test happen and see it in operation and help them troubleshoot, that is an eligible project cost. If you need to travel to Silicon Valley to meet with investors, while excellent and we wish you the best, it is not eligible under our travel policy. So this indirect cost coverage. So while you're building your budget, if you put any labor into the budget in our application form, it will automatically apply a 55% overhead or indirect cost rate to any of that labor, and it will cap it to a maximum of your total costs of 15%. So on a booster, usually up to $30,000 could be this indirect cost policy. We give you this money to cover the unseen or difficult to account for expenses in your project, and there are a lot of the things we talked about. It's your project management labor, your CFO's time or bookkeeper's time while they're filing the claims, the vacation and benefits you pay to your staff, a general administrative labor support, all those high volume materials I talked about, the lease of your facility, a laptop for your engineer, transportation costs like daily commutes. All those things are covered under our indirect cost policy. You do not need to provide documentation for these costs. I assume that you are incurring them, and we just tack on a supplemental percentage as described here onto your budget. If you build expenses like this into your budget, or if you put a nice big line item under materials that says consumables, we will deem it ineligible and we will not pay for it. So watch as you're building your budget. Think about providing a good amount of detail in your budget. We do score your budget, and if we do not feel there's enough detail to proceed to a review, we will be in touch with you to give us more detail. We want to know what the job description is of the person that you're asking for wage coverage for. We want to know what the vendor is going to be doing for you. Are they a testing partner? Are they doing a early production run of your new ingredient? Are they coming in to help you develop a new piece of equipment? All those things we need to understand in detail at the application phase in order to approve your submission. Things we won't pay for. So again, because we're an R&D program, sales and marketing activities, including consultants and salaries of staff on those teams, travel to trade shows, new websites or sales materials, a consultant to help you develop a commercialization plan, we cannot cover those. We will not be able to pay them. We also can't cover any security or food safety certifications. I can't do TSSA certificates for a new piece of hardware. I can't do any food safety consultants. It's just the rules that we've been handed from the federal government. No alcohol, no tips for meals, and no unreasonable travel expenses. I won't be paying for a consultant to help prepare your application or your claims, and anything that's not outlined in your original budget without permission from us is not something that we are willing to pay for. So should you be successful with a project with us and it gets approved, we're happy to work with you if things change. That happens, but we have to assess what it is you're putting forward as a change and what you'd like to incur as another expense, because there was an originally approved project and scope of activities, and we've got to make sure we're in line with that. An often asked question, and perhaps an unknown term to you, but something you should learn about if you're looking at government funding, is this concept of stacking. Stacking is when you seek funding support from one organization like CFIN, and then you go and get more support for the project from another government agency. Not everyone allows stacking. We do. We allow stacking up to 75% of the eligible costs. However, if you've already secured that funding, you've got to let us know what programs are already supporting. So if it's MyTax or IRAP or a provincial food-related program, and you are responsible for monitoring that you do not exceed 75% support. So we give 50. So if you're going to another program that gives 50, then you may run into some challenges there. So if you are looking at stacking and you want some clarity on what you're doing, please reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to help you address those and give you the best advice. Things like SHRED, so tax credits, that does not count as stacking. That's not a grant program. So you will have to do some work if you get funding on your SHRED claims, but it's not relevant to CFIN if you are getting SHRED as well as our funding. So we're here to fund R&D, and we would hope that as a result of receiving, let's say, $100,000 in funding from us, that you will be creating new intellectual property because of your innovation project. And it is our expectation that you will be protecting it, either as a trade secret, an industrial design, or a patent. A patent's not always the most appropriate answer, but we do want you to be generating intellectual property, even if it's a trade secret. And so coming to the end of your project and saying, I didn't create any intellectual property, is not really an acceptable answer under our funding program. So if you are very early in your business or early in your sort of IP protection or strategy work, and you haven't yet really begun to educate yourself about what a good IP strategy is and what the value of that is in your business, we are more than happy to connect you with either national or provincial resources that can help you get that started. We will help pay for the costs of protecting your intellectual property that's created out of these projects. That is an eligible subcontractor cost in our programs. And we certainly really want to see in your proposal that you've begun to identify what intellectual property you might be creating and how you're going to create that. And if you are not yet ready to get started in that space, or you're not there yet, it is something we're going to ask you to get into as a result of this project. And as I said, we're happy to make connections for you. But it is something that we want to see. So the statement like, we won't be creating any intellectual property as a result of this project is going to be problematic for us. And because we are, we think that that's very important. And if you're curious about statistics around what the impact of intellectual property is on Canadian businesses and how having an IP strategy can help your business, I'm also really happy to talk to you outside of this session about why that's important and what impact it tends to have on the companies who have IP strategies. So what's the application process? I'm going to take you through a bit of a demo of our system. The Innovation Booster is a single application process. So what you're filling out in the application by March 25th is our first intake, and then we have subsequent intakes listed on our website, is it. So a moment to leave it all on the dance floor, I guess, as they say in English. I don't know how that will translate on the wordly, but we accept applications online in our portal until the advertised date of closure for the intake at midnight local time. This is the web address for the application. It's listed on our website. It will allow you to submit all your supplemental documents, such as pitch decks, letters of support, quotes, costs, any other documentation you feel adds context, plus answer our application questions. And I'm going to go through those questions shortly. You are required to submit financial documentation. We generally request 2 years of financial statements to be submitted with your application. If you can't meet this requirement, a term sheet, bank statement, or other documentation demonstrating your financial position helps. But I'm not going to lie to you, we prefer the financial statements. So if you're early and you want to apply to our programs, we will accept these other pieces. We understand that sometimes there's some very high quality, innovative companies that are up and coming, and we want to support you. So we remain flexible. But your application must have some proof of financial capability attached to it, and not providing that is a problem. Just because you do provide us proof of financial capability as well does not guarantee that your application will be approved. So it's still a merit-based process, but showing us that you have the money is a big piece of the eligibility. So what are the questions that we ask? So and again, I'll take you through the exact application form here in another screen shortly, but you're going to be asked to give us an application overview with a title, a description, a start and end date. You're going to give us a profile of your business and a snapshot of your last filed fiscal year in terms of revenues, number of employees, etc. We're going to ask you to identify any major service providers. So if you're, like I said, if you're working with the University of Alberta or the Verschuren Center, you're going to name and list them, as well as any project partners. A partner is going to be a pilot partner. So ABC Bakery is going to test out my ingredient, or it could be someone who's giving you money towards the project. So for example, it could be that ABC partner has agreed to give you $10,000, which is nominal towards the cost of the project, and test your software. Those are the types of things we find under project partners. And then we have 8 questions. We look for an overview of your business. We look to understand your current financial position, the background and why you got here in terms of the project. What are you trying to do? What are you hoping the outcomes will be? How are you going to go about it? What's the design and methodology? What's innovative or transformational about this project? How are your customers currently solving this problem? And how are you better than their current solutions? We want to see under the innovative and transformational aspects that you understand your competitive landscape and that you understand your customer. We're also looking for some information on your intellectual property plans. That question is worth 20 marks. It is the highest scoring component of the application. The second after that is the project design and methodology at 15 points. And I'll show the scoring rubric next. We're going to ask you to speak to our innovation priorities and how your project addresses needs of our members. And then we're going to ask, if this is successful, what's the benefits to your business and what's the bigger benefits to the sector? So maybe if, you're successful in solving this problem or creating this new ingredient, Canadian businesses will have a new Canadian supply of, say, usually something we source from the US, which is obviously a big problem right now, or things like that. Then we ask you to complete a budget, forecast, sources of funds, and a work plan, and upload those supporting documents. So there's a scoring rubric. we follow this scoring rubric. When our reviewers are scoring your application, they go to each question and they look at the guidance you were given for that particular question and the answer that you've provided, and then they score you accordingly. Usually you have at least 3 reviewers scoring your submission. All our reviewers do get screened for conflicts of interest, and they also are bound by confidentiality agreements. And then we select the winners from the top scoring submissions. So generally, if you score an 80 plus in our applications, you're well positioned to be in the top scores. If you're lower than that, so for example, if you're weak on one of our top scoring areas, you will not find yourself in that top score. So I'm going to give you a bit of a demo of the system. So forgive me here while I get in. So just as an aside, perhaps I'll do one thing to start is when you arrive at our website, it will look like this. If you are accessing the system in French, si tu veux accéder le système en français, you can go to select language and choose French, and that will change everything about your experience from this moment on to French. If you've become a member and it's been 24 hours and you want to access the system, you will go here and you can do the forgot password to get yourself into your account for the first time, and it will set up a new password link for this platform to you. We are having some challenges at the moment for if you're using a Gmail web address, email address. We are having some challenges that we're hoping to work out in the next 24 hours with our application platform. So if you're facing any struggles, be patient. Feel free to send us an email. We are aware of it and we are working on it. Once you log in, this is what the system looks like. So up here at the top, I have first my profile and my organization profile. I recommend you go there first. For your organization profile, you will go ahead and put in information to, update your organizational profile. This will feed into your application. Once I'm done that, I will go back to home. And any open funding programs will be found here under funding opportunities. Once I have started an application, I will then find it in here. So don't always go into funding opportunities like this. You'll do this one time. So here I am. I can see 2 open programs. We have our Innovation Booster and our Food Tech Next program. I want to apply to the booster. I'm going to click Apply Now. I will be asked 3 qualifying questions. These are important, and if you answer no to them, you are not eligible for our program. So you have to be at least 1 year of incorporation. So I'm going to say, I'm going to focus on a project, let's say on food processing. So I'm going to say yes. And I'm not creating a new protein bar. So again, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to submit my eligibility. Oh, I said yes. Oh, forgive me 1 second. I'll try that again. So yes, yes, and yes. Submit. It'll tell me that I'm eligible and I can proceed. And now you are in your application form proper. If you want to see the application guide, you can find it up here and that will open it in a new window. You can download it. You begin filling out the application form. Each of these tabs is a section of the application. So here I've got my title, my description, my start and end date, and whoever the contact is for my application. Anytime I add information, I want to click Save Draft to make sure that I don't lose anything. My applicant information, that's where I'm going to put my business info. The info from my profile will auto feed my address. if the project is taking place at a different location, maybe you have multiple facilities, you can identify that and add the new address. This is the business info that's required. So your CRA number, your shareholders, any sort of demographic elements of your ownership, the information from your fiscal year. This is where you will add partners and service providers for your project. You'll get into the actual questions that are scored here. You have 500 characters or 500 words for each question. It is common that you will not score very well if you only give me 100-word answers. These are a very competitive program, as I mentioned. You want to make sure that you're fully addressing the question here and giving us as much information as possible, and focus in on what each program is asking for. So there are some guidance in each of these that you want to be addressing. Once you've filled this in, these are really sort of the bulk of those 8 questions. Again, always save draft. You'll find our innovation priorities, the alignment with that question here, and the benefits to your business question, as well as the food sector here. We've added this table to help you make sure that you quantify this and show us out a few years what's the impact. So if you launch this novel solution that we're going to help you develop, what does that mean for your business? So in what we're asking you in the first 3 columns is post-project, what does your job increase look like? And then in the last 3 columns, we're asking you, hey, if we don't fund this, what's the impact? So we're asking you to help us understand how mission critical this is for your business. I think this really helps you make the case for why certain investments are needed and how they can help propel you forward. So the first 3 columns are for, I completed the project, it was a great success, what's happening in my business across these metrics. If there's no metric or no impact in that area, you can leave it blank. And then we want to see in the last 3 columns, what would happen if we didn't fund you? What does that look like? And it might show you, really flat in terms of job creation, things like that. The budget. So how the budget works is you open each window, complete them in order, especially for these tables, the budget, the forecast, and the sources of funds. If you complete the budget, which you go ahead and you'll get some guidance here, you can add a line, and you can say engineering director, and you can put in, let's say $25,000. You can say yes. So you'll add different expenses here, and we'll go Bureau Veritas, say $15,000, and you'll add all these, and you'll click save. It'll do a couple things. Down at the bottom, it will, it's a little of a lag in Zoom, sorry about that. It'll, calculate your total budget, including the indirect cost. Remember, I said we'll give you an overhead coverage. So it'll calculate that. Tells us that the total project cost is $53,000 minus, whatever overhead we can't give you because it's over 15%. Comes to a $48,000 project. We're giving $24,000. The project management fee is $2,400. So once you save this table, this data will carry through into your forecast by quarter table. If you make a whoopsie and you realize you missed an expense and you go back and you edit the budget, when you open the forecast table, you want to clear it first so that you get that tidied up. Oh, sorry, I've lost my... So the forecast by quarter, you'll be able to enter the values in the quarter in which you're going to incur it. And get my window back here. And you'll complete each of those tables accordingly. And as you complete them, they will show up and display here further down. So each table, as you complete them, will show up. And of course, always saving draft. Your application files are where you can upload documents if you've got some initial testing result from your ingredient, or you've got a pitch deck, or you've got an overview of your product. great things to add here to give way more context for the reviewers. And then, as we mentioned, the financial statements or proof of financial capacity goes here. And then you'll clear off on our terms and conditions and sign off on the application, and then you can press submit. This all has to be done before March 25th at midnight for our first intake. And then, as I mentioned, subsequent intakes will be updated on our website and you can apply to them there. So that's the portal in a quick, run through it. We can see everything you're doing in the portal. If you run into problems, come and talk to us. Send us an email at innovation@cfin-rcia.ca. It's listed on the website and in the application forms. We're more than happy to troubleshoot. It does happen sometimes that there's a little glitch in this system, and we welcome hearing about it and getting the opportunity to fix it. Our programs team is, who's presenting to you today. Across Canada, we do have 5 members, our regional innovation directors, who are there to sort of help you as well. So if you're looking for partners or suppliers, or if you want some additional advice on your application, these 5 people are a great resource. I haven't been looking at the chat, so I don't know if any of them are on, but they're more than happy to help you. Si tu es à la recherche d'un service en français, ça va être Julie Daigle qui va t'aider. Elle est notre service en français, mais aussi tu peux me parler en français. So you can reach out to me if you're preferring service in French as well, but Julie is our French spokesperson. So even if you're in New Brunswick or, somewhere else in Canada, you're welcome to reach out to her, even though you're not in Quebec. So I'm going to go ahead and open the question box now. I'm going to invite you to submit Q&As there, and I'm going to start responding to things. This is our email here if you want to talk about your project. But I'm going to go ahead and start working through some of the questions. So someone asks, what's the definition of food technology as referred by you? Oh, that's a great question. Canadian Food Innovation Network, generally, as I said, is targeting what we call the post-farm gate sector. And we're looking at technology where it could be hardware, software, or an ingredient. It's not a service, and there generally has to be an element of intellectual property. So a new app where I can review restaurants might not quite fit, but if you're in the middle ground there, you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to chat with you about it. So someone's asking, what's the department of the Government of Canada which provides funding to our programs, and will the impending elections delay the disbursement? We are funded by Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. We have a multi-year agreement with them for these programs. The impending election will not delay the disbursement. So you should be totally fine. I mean, there could always be surprises, but our claims and that process moves through and is already approved, and it doesn't involve a minister signing things, so it should be totally fine. Someone's asking, would this be for product development? So if you mean I'm creating a new food product, like a new butter chicken sauce or a new protein bar, no, it's not for that. Unless you've got a novel ingredient. So let's say I've been looking at sprouted hemp and its health ingredients, and I think I know something about how to sprout hemp that will make it drastically different than any other hemp protein on the market, could be a good fit. But if it's I'm making a new protein bar, not a fit. And if you are on the edge of that and you're not sure, there are certainly gray instances. More than happy to chat with you about it. Someone's asking, what if the person investing in the new in the research of the new ingredient or technology is a farmer? If the technology largely impacts a farmer, so it is new, I don't know, tagging for livestock or new crop science, it's not eligible for our funding. So if the primary target of the innovation is a farmer, not eligible. If it is primarily targeted at food processors, but it's being developed by a farmer, sure, that could be eligible. Some people are posting, I'm looking for some investors or I'm looking for some assistance in certain areas. I love that. Not an easy place for us to respond to that because it's a webinar where I'm the only one who can talk. Sorry about that. Great opportunity to put these things into Yodel and go ahead and look at that. Someone is asking, would production of flavor ingredients using sustainable methods from waste qualify for a project suitable for the Innovation Booster? Yes, we have already funded some projects like that. And actually, I'll ask my colleague, Jaleh, who's been active in the chat, to share the link to our existing funded projects, because that may help some of you understand what we think of food innovation. Someone is asking, do we reimburse 100% of salaries and wages for staff involved in R&D? We fund 50% of the salaries and wages of staff time, the hours involved in our project. So I will not just fund your food scientist 100% of their time. I will fund the direct hours that they are working on our project, and they must track that and report that to us. Someone's also asking, what do we typically give in terms of funding ratio? We always approve 50%. So we do not come back to you and say, hey, we looked at your project, we think it's only worth 30%. We fund at 50%. It is possible that we will reduce your budget if it has ineligible cost items, which is why I recommended you really take some time to go over the component of the program and program guide that involves the that covers costs. Someone asks, if any R&D is not shareholder but a related party, would we reimburse? If the staff is not a primary shareholder, then we will reimburse their time on the project. If they are a shareholder, we will not reimburse their time. So that's really it. So someone asks, what is the rate of reimbursement for subcontractors or payroll? It's 50%. We fund 50% of what you put into your budget, and if it's eligible. Someone asks, so for input materials, like the actual ingredients for testing, for what we need for testing, would that be covered? Yes, I will cover ingredients for, let's say, you're not, whatever you're creating. So ingredients are fine, but what's not going to work are really high volume pieces. Again, we get into this a lot with equipment projects like nuts and bolts, things like buckets, packaging, etc. We don't fund that sort of thing. But actual input of materials into a test batch, for example, 100%, we will cover that. Someone asks for C-level staff that can be accounted for. The CFO was mentioned as okay, but the CTO, no. Often a CTO is a shareholder. I'm willing to consider C-suite staff, but again, if they are shareholders in the business, then no, we won't fund it. And if you're going to tell me that your CFO or another, even your CEO is 100% spending their time on this project, I am going to question you on that, because usually a CEO has a big job, not just about creating a product, but also about running the business. And that's general and administrative time that is not direct time on the project. So you'll want to account for their hours accordingly. Someone asks if IP costs fall under contractor costs. Yes, we will cover the IP expenses from a lawyer under subcontractors. Someone's asking about some specific IP relationships around partners and things like that. So for those of you who have really specific questions on your own application, I really recommend just emailing us and we can look at that individual situation. I don't want to air your very specific situation here in our recorded Zoom session. Someone asks, is zero revenue a problem that they're developing their first product? We have funded companies who are very early and are not yet generating revenue, so that's fine. However, we also want to see that you can, afford to undertake this project and float the expenses. So that's something that we will look at probably with a little more scrutiny if you're very early in your business. Someone asks if recycling food waste streams to create, new food supply chains to address food security could be acceptable. Yes. The method with which you do it should be innovative. So if it's just about gleaning a field and picking carrots that the farmer didn't pick out of the field or that were left over and getting that into the food supply chain just through grunt labor or through hard work, there has to be an innovation and technology component. Tons of questions, and we're going to run short on time, but I'm going to address a few others. Someone asks, can the funding be applied to processing innovations that results in a know-how competitive advantage? We are looking for transformative innovation. So when we fund your project, we want it to not only impact your business, but potentially impact other food sectors. If your intention with your R&D project is, I'm going to solve this problem and then I'm going to keep that secret to myself, and I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm not going to commercialize that knowledge, I am not selling it to anyone, that's a harder sell for us. Even if it has a great personal impact to you in your, say, food processing business, we want to know that the technology might be commercialized and impact other companies. We get so much demand and we only have so much money to have a big impact on the sector. And so if you're creating a solution and your aim is to create it and then get better at, what you're doing and be better at it than everyone else and not share that intellectual property or not try and commercialize it, going to be a hard one for us to consider because we're looking for a transformative element. That kind of project where you might end up with a competitive advantage know-how in your own business might be better suited for SHRED or other programs. Someone's asking if data software companies would be eligible. Yes, if your technology is targeting food processing, companies in food distribution, food service, that's eligible. So depends who it targets. For feedback on applications, because I think we're going to run short on time, I'm happy to keep going through questions, but for feedback, your regional innovation director is one source. Your innovation at email is also another. We're happy to help you choose. Probably best if you're looking for support through the innovation at email to give us some good bits of information in the application so we can read it and give you guidance. If you're looking for phone calls, our programs team is a team of 2 people. And we're going to get a lot of requests. So try and make it as easy as possible for us by giving us lots of information. If you have last few questions, if you have potential partners, but they're not 100% confirmed, should we still list it in the application? I would potentially, I think it has a lot of value, but I understand sometimes it's not easy to nail someone down before you might have funding. But yes, I think if you've got someone, then I would include that. Someone says, how do we track hours if we're successful with our project? We have a timesheet that we ask you to use. So we have a tool that we request that you use. Someone's asking, what's the earliest disbursement date, or, if we're funded, like what would be I think you're asking me the eligible date for expenses. We require 60 days to review your applications. So we're closing this intake, the first one on March 25th. 60 days after that would be the first date we would consider eligible costs, and that rule follows for the other intakes. So I think many of these other questions are pretty, I've addressed them otherwise, but again, invite you to email us. My last question that I'll answer is, whether or not audited financials are required or if unaudited is okay. We will accept review engagement, and we have some information about that in our program guide. So this is, our info session for this program. I want to just encourage you to go to our website, where we do have, and hold on, let me pull it up for you. We do have the booster program details available for you, and I think it's being put in the chat. But in that program, you'll be able to see the program guide. I have it in French and English. Download this guide. It is your Bible for this program. If you want to be successful with an application, thoroughly reading this is a very smart starting point. It has pretty much answers to everything you need, and you can use the table of contents to navigate. And, if you're looking for your first frontier for answering questions, this is where I would go. So I'll invite you all to do that. Say thank you very much for your time. We're super excited to hear about your planned innovations, and we hope to be able to support you through our programs. And so with that, I will go ahead and wish you all a great rest of your day. We will be posting a recording of this session online in sort of the next 48 hours. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.